I, Ankita Datta, project lead for the Mask series at www.tellmeyourstory.biz, welcome you to the 11th episode of The Mask Factor. I'm privileged to have with us author Amanthi Harris this evening, and we are going to discuss a word, an era, a story, and the significance of them all. Tell Me Your Story calls for submissions of short stories and poems on Mask. Also, registrations are open for the writing program season 2 with the story prompt of Women's Silence, which is yet another form of Mask. Let me begin by introducing Amanthi. Amanthi Harris grew up in Sri Lanka and London. She studied fine art at Central St. Martin's and has degrees in law and chemistry from Bristol University. Beautiful Place is her first novel, and Lantern Evening, a novella, won the Gatehouse Press New Fictions Prize 2016. Her short stories have been published and broadcast on BBC Radio 4. Welcome, Amanthi.
Hello. Hi. Hi,
So, uh,
everyone.
so, let us talk about Sri Lanka first. Sri Lanka has been, heavily portrayed as mesmerizing, as picturesque. So, Sri Lanka indeed is a tourist attraction, replete with the hubbub and the solace. So, is the beautiful place on a broader narrative Sri Lanka? I mean, is Villa Hibiscus your ideal microcosm?
Well, Sri Lanka is where I grew up as a child till I was 10. So I have really wonderful memories of growing up there. And I grew up in, but not in the center. Had a big garden and it was beautiful fruit trees and flowers and all this kind of thing. And I mean, it's changed a lot now, obviously, now that all that has gone and there are flats where there used to be all this. But when I was growing up, my grandparents were in the house next door. So I used to spend all my time with them. And so I was drawing a lot on that world of freedom and kind of that amazing sense of beauty all day around the house when I wrote the book. So that's so Sri Lanka, yes, but it's more a question of me trying to capture a childhood memory, I suppose. And yeah, and definitely the house, the atmosphere of being accepted as you were and being encouraged to be creative. All of that was part of my childhood, and that's, I suppose, my ideal home in a place to grow up. And so I wanted to somehow recreate that.
Thank you so much, ma'am. The home is where your heart is. Also the very well read novel, Frankenstein, it also portrays even a monster's longing for an accepting home. So, similar voices are echoed by the expatriates. They search for a home, for a familiar place, for an identity. So, Beautiful Place is also traced on the same lines. So, how much is Padma personally close to or recognized by Amanthi?
Well, I suppose she's maybe a version of who I might have been if I'd carried on and grown up in Sri Lanka. Maybe I was exploring that. I mean, she developed over many years. I wrote the book over 10 years, so she kept changing. But maybe there's a bit of me in all the women. So Ria, in Anjali, but Padma was a kind of hypothetical person that I perhaps might have become if I'd grown up there. I don't know. I was exploring what it would have been like to grow up there if I'd stayed at my grandparents' in their world, if that's how it would have been. Yeah, so I guess it's an imagined me that might have been.
Wow, that's beautiful. The building, the Villa Hibiscus, the characters, the plot, the theme, they are all camouflaged throughout your novel. So what lays bare is sometimes the least trustworthy.
Mm.
If we come down to days of incessant doubts and suspicions, where are we heading to?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I think well that's part of having this beautiful place, is that that isn't always enough. So in a way, that's also what the book is about. So you can Gerhard, the architect, he wants so much to make this place wonderful and beautiful, and he keeps, the dog to keep people out, anybody that, and to keep danger out, but in the end that is detrimental, because then you're living in this. So if you, I guess I was exploring the fact that eventually you have to move on, and what that feels like. And Padma was brought up and she's so happy there, and but then it stops being a nurturing environment. And I think that's something that's also to do with growing up. Places stop being the wonderful, nurturing environments all forever, and then you have to move on. And I think that's what I was exploring, how that feels when you have to move on, and how you come to that decision when you move on.
Wow, that was that was lovely actually. So let's move on to the next question. The father-daughter equation between
Mm.
Sunny and Padma. It's furiously, complicated and also painful. So Sunny is paid by Gerhard to stay away from Padma, but he resurfaces at the best available opportunity. So the
Mm.
person who adopts Padma is a well-wisher, while the biological father is an opportunist. So, in such a context of deceit and trust, both from unlikely sources, how difficult was that journey to, craft the characters and the plot?
Hmm. I think um, one of the main things I was also concerned with when I was writing this was about how we make connections, and how we open as we grow up, and we open to the world, and we form family, not necessarily with our biological family. Sometimes you can form family with completely new people, because you've connected in some way. So the connection was important to me. So um, I was exploring that in the book, and so that it didn't dictate the plot, but it affected the plot. So I was interested in the relationships between Padma and her guests. Were connections possible? So with some of them, she starts off not being sure of them, a bit suspicious, but the minute she opens up, or they open to her, suddenly a wonderful things can happen. And I was curious, how this worked. And then Anjali is another character who has made all these wrong assumptions about Padma, and that's the other advantage of having all these different viewpoints. You can see how we misunderstand. So the reader knows the facts and their stories behind these people most of this time, and then they can see how other people misunderstand, or how other people misread another person. And yeah, so I was concerned that's how it affected the plot in that way, because I want anything where the characters reveal themselves to each other and connected. I was curious to kind of explore that. So then the story became bigger and bigger and bigger for that reason.
Thank you, ma'am. So it was beautifully crafted. We can just understand from your explanation. So, if we talk about Indian mythology, hibiscus, very much associated with goddess
Mm.
Kali, is pious yet detrimental by means of this association itself. So, while insects are attracted by the bright colors, the holy flowers are worshipped by us. So, do we already have an essence of the villa here? I mean, can I presumably state that Padma was attracted to the house, that she worshipped the villa as auspicious? Also, Padma, who is associated with the same, like hibiscus, she becomes like the goddess and ends the malpractices.
Well, this was new to me, actually. I hadn't realized there was the association with goddess Kali, which is really interesting, because in Sri Lanka, I think for me, the hibiscus flower is associated with the feminine, and it's sort of women wear it for weddings in their hair. And if my aunt went past one, she'd pick a bush, she'd kind of put one in her hair. I always remembered it as a kind of very decorative, feminine thing. And I think I had that at the back of my mind when I was writing. So, but it was very interesting, because sort of Lord Shiva is a big presence in the novel because of the yoga and the fact that she really looks up to Indian culture, and she's learning about it from her guru, who's this guy in the village, and a statue of Lord Shiva becomes a big motif in the book, and so it was an interesting thing. I mean, this idea of empowerment, because that's what Padma has to eventually rise up to. She has to, she can't be looked after by other people. She has to look after herself and has to make decisions and has to grow. And also she has to destroy things as well. I mean, there's the whole sense of destruction as well, and how the past is destroyed so that something new can come. I was very interested in that, the idea that things can be new, but for that something has to be destroyed. And so that whole mythology was there, I suppose, at the back. But I was thinking more in terms of Lord Shiva in that sense. And the flower for me was more of a sort of decorative, exotic, beautifying presence.
Okay, ma'am. So, yeah, so, but then, we have different interpretations across cultures. So,
Mm.
absolutely. So, when your novel came out, it was the onset of COVID and it had been revealed already. So, after more than a year from then, has your personal interpretation of the beautiful place changed?
I think if anything, it's made me want to, really appreciate Asia, South Asia in particular, more, and want, because just after my book came out, I came to India on a book tour, and in fact, we were in Trivandrum for a literary festival, the Mathrubhumi Literary Festival, when the first COVID case was written up about in the press in India. And it was a nurse who'd come back to Kerala. And we were all kind of going, what is this? We were all sort of, it hadn't hit any of us how serious it was and how serious it would be. And it was all, I feel it's almost as if just almost straight after I was in India for a month, I did various readings in Mumbai and the Kalagoda Festival, and I was also in Delhi afterwards as well and did some events. And we got back to England, and within a few weeks, the whole world had changed. And it feels a bit like this. I mean, I'm still processing the whole thing. It's so unreal and so not over. It's still not over. I mean, we're all been in the. I was in the UK at the time, and then there was a lockdown for quite a while, and then there was a small pause in the lockdown. In the UK, we had the Brexit thing happening as well, so we were keen to leave and get to Europe before the deadline. So we made it to Spain, and then of course Spain had it very, very badly. So there were very strict rules in place here, and so it's been continuing. And so, and of course now there's the next variant. So and it this whole time feels almost another phase. So it doesn't feel related to that other life when we were just working out, oh, have I got time? Have I got money? Can I go traveling? It's not. It's beyond that now. It's a different world. It's a different time. It's taking care of your family and yourself, and making sure you don't do anything dangerous that proves dangerous to somebody else. So it feels like another time altogether. And the book, I'm still, and then in other ways things have continued. So we're doing this kind of thing, and I do readings online. I meet up with people online. It's a straight, like a sort of a version of the old life continues, and then this whole other life has now taken over. So
Yes.
yeah.
So right now internet has become a beautiful place for us. So
Yes. Yeah.
so ma'am, please, like we are already talking about the novel, so please tell us about your publishing journey with Pan Macmillan. I mean, would you like to recollect some of the long discussions that you might have had with your editor?
Well, funnily enough, I mean, I had a slightly strange. I mean, I think every writer has a very different path, really, to this their first novel. Anyway, I was writing mine for ages, and um, I started writing it when I was at art college, because I had a previous novel that I'd written, and it wasn't really a proper novel. I'd written a draft, and it nothing happened. People got interested, and then they lost interest, and it didn't get published. And it was a long, drawn out process over a couple of years. And afterwards, I couldn't really write. I didn't think I could. So I worked on my art portfolio, applied to art college, and I went to art college. And of course, it was really wonderful there, really creative. And then I started writing again, and that's when I started writing Beautiful Place. So, but it was a long thing. I got pregnant somewhere along the way. I had a baby, and I kept working. And then when I sent the novel out, nothing much happened. I sent it out to a few places, but nothing really happened. So then I wrote a novella about motherhood, and that won a prize, quite unexpectedly. And that prize, the Gatehouse Press, it was a small press, and they were amazingly supportive. And they said, "Oh, if you got anything else, we can help you promote it." And so I gave them the Beautiful Place novel, the manuscript, and they liked it, and they passed it on to a publisher in the UK. And at the same time, they introduced me to my agent at David Godwin Associates, and um, she then took the novel and brought it to India, and yeah, and Pan Macmillan took it. So it was really, it kind of happened in bits and pieces, but really all thanks to that little novella I wrote, and the wonderful small press for giving me a hand with getting my work out, because sending it off on my own, it wasn't nobody was I wasn't it wasn't meeting the right person. And the the little publisher knew exactly who would like it, so he said, "Oh, I think I know somebody who might like this," and passed it on to Salt Publishing in the UK, who took a risk with it, which is great. And then Pam Macmillan took it. And because I've been working on it for so long, and it was pretty much edited and ready to go, so um, we didn't have really long conversations about structure or anything. It was more about kind of really like me. They were very kind of trusting. They said, "It's up to you what you want to." So I edited any extra excess, as much excess, as I could see in it, and they were happy to go with that.
Well, life takes unexpected turns,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, ma'am, you can be deemed a pan citizen, proudly incorporating cultures, transboundaries. So, with a touch of humor, this novel coronavirus that can also be negatively claimed as one such identity. So, would there be
Mm.
more themes that you may have come across in a similar way, like someone or something that is global beyond prescribed peripheries? I mean, language and music being there as is,
Mm.
something else.
Um, Probably sort of the visual, like any way of connection, making connections. So art, obviously, is a music. I mean, here where I live in the mountains, everyone speaks different languages. I write in English, so my Spanish isn't good enough to write literature, um, or to just kind of fully understand when somebody reads their fiction. So music is a big thing, and art as well, because obviously it's universal, and film too. I mean, it's all ways of seeing each other's stories in some way, and to understand. And I would say film and art and just ways of connecting.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. And nowadays we have subtitles too, so we can connect more
Exactly.
easily.
All languages. Exactly.
So, you have studied fine arts, then law and chemistry. So, to me, these are very different subjects with very different motivation and varying passion altogether. So, has this varied experience, been promoted through your personal upbringing? Did such a combination flourish your creativity or enrich the faculty or maybe unleash your inner urges?
Well, I would say the art definitely. I've discovered that I need to do both, and the writing and the art feed each other. So stuff I've been reading about or playing with in my writing somehow feeds into ideas for my artwork, and vice versa. But the chemistry and law, I well, more because I was quite academic at school, and my family, wanted very much for me to have be a doctor, or so the doctor part was the initial one, and so I was being pushed to be a doctor, and I compromised and said I'll study chemistry, which is not really the right way to study something, because I wasn't passionate about it at all. And so when I finished, I just didn't want to continue. And then everyone said, "Oh, why don't you make a good lawyer? Why don't you become a lawyer?" So in England, you can do a conversion from any subject. It takes an extra couple of years or a year. I did a master's to convert, and then you can practice. So then I got a job as a solicitor, in a solicitor's firm, and absolutely hated it, and I was so miserable. And I knew this was wrong, and so eventually I plucked up the courage to quit, and I worked in a bookshop, and read I felt like I couldn't write because I hadn't really read enough. So my job was to put everything in alphabetical order. So I read, and it was a really funny little bookshop, and very literary, very bookish. It was secondhand books and old books and things that were out of print. And sometimes I used to get paid in books because he didn't have enough money. So I'd be like, it was completely eccentric. But I had a really good introduction to literature, all different authors and essays and biographies and wonderful books that I still carry around everywhere I go. And then I started writing. And then I mentioned how I ended up at art college because when the writing seemed to fail, I needed to do something else. So, but that's when I realized that those two things are important to me. So the law, I mean, nothing's wasted. I mean, it's always useful to have these skills. Like, if I ever had, in fact, some friends had who owned a lovely cafe had some legal problems, and I was able to help them with that for free. You can help. You can read through documents and help and things, but it's the writing and the art that are my kind of core things, and they very much work in tandem. Whenever I've said, no, I'm not doing any art, I've got to finish some story or something, it never works. I always have to have a little, sketching trip or something just to kind of feed the creative process, I think.
Wow, that's wonderful. And so, like, book shops are like heaven to avid book readers. So,
Yeah.
since we're like talking about books, I would have a special request before we conclude this formal session. Could you please read to us, if you have your
Mm.
novel with you,
Yeah,
please,
yeah,
if
yeah.
you could read to us something that could, be heartwarming.
um I was going to read the first page, but I think maybe I'll read the end, because we were talking about Lord Shiva and the statue, and I
Yeah.
don't think I'm going to be making spoiling any endings as such. Um, where shall I read from? Okay, from here. Just a little bit. Back at
Yes.
Gerhardt's Back at Gerhardt's house, it was still early morning, as if no time had passed. Soma was still asleep. It was as if she had never left. She tore up her note and made coffee. She sat in the courtyard by a blue-tiled pool that Gerhardt had designed. The goldfish darted under the lily pads, believing perhaps that they had always lived there. The dark, square pond by the villa's porch, all gone, not even a memory. How about Kiribati for breakfast? Soma asked, appearing in the doorway. Kiribati? It was not the first of the month or a Boya day, and it was not New Year or Sinhala New Year, Pongal or Christmas. But the day was auspicious, a day of endings and a new beginning. Yes, Kiribati, she said, and he went inside to start. Soon there was the hiss of oil and mustard seeds popping, the smell of onions frying as he made sini-sambol to eat with the Kiribati. She went into the house. In the dining room her suitcases waited, half packed for Goa. She lit a candle before the dancing Lord Shiva. The flame gleamed, moving in the dark bronze limbs. Trust Sunny and Mukul to overlook the one thing of value at the villa. Lord Shiva smiled blissfully, dancing inside his flaming circle. Agile and sure, he thrilled in his dance of destruction, removing all obstacles, giving life to the future. She opened to that sunlit brightness and all that it might hold. I'll stop there.
Wow. That was wonderful. I mean, I believe that has motivated a lot of people to, now just go and grab a copy and start reading about it.
So,
So, yes, well, so at Mask Factor, we discussed new perspectives in each episode. But thanks a lot, Amanthi, today because we did not use the word itself, but we
mm,
discussed it all through because we were discussing about the camouflaged characters, the plot, and
mm,
all. We had a lot of interpretations and stuff. So,
mm.
thank you. Thank you for this very insightful conversation, your time this evening, and also this lovely reading at the end. That was a
Oh,
like pie on the cake. Thank you so much. So
thanks for having me.
to everyone, let me put a reminder. Tell Me Your Story calls for submissions on Mask, and registrations are open for the writing program season 2 with the story prompt of Women's Silence, which is yet another form of Mask. We hope to hear from you. Till then, let us all try to stay well, let us stay safe, and though distanced, let us stay together. Good night.